How's it, Sticklers? Tonight we have a fantastic episode. In our news section, we'll be talking about My Hero Academia, Andor Season 2, Scarlett Johansson, and Kite Man. And as far as our trailers, we'll get into some Nosferatu, Penguin, TMNT, that's coming out on Paramount Plus. And for our reviews, we'll talk about some If, Jim Henson's Idea Man, The Boys, and House of Dragon. Dramatic pause. We'll see you in the show.
The Joystick Show. The Joystick Show.
How's it, Sticklers? The Joystick Show is back for our weekly pod where we talk story about things we've read, watched, or played. You know, the things that bring us joy. Shakas Mahalas for sticking around. If can, please like and subscribe on any and every podcast platform. And of course on YouTube, because we're there now. I'm your co-host Drake. That's Scott.
How's it?
And we have a special guest today, Lance. Would you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, my name is Lance. I'm a big comic fan and a fan of the show as well, so it's a treat to be here. Thank you so much.
Nice. And we also have our producer, NIKI RAAK, in the background. But hey, I think it's enter episode number here. I think it's 153, to be honest. But I think there's like another spotlight we're gonna be throwing out. So why don't we just dive right into the news? Recently on IGN, there was an article that came out that said My Hero Academia is ending in August 2024. So if that's the case, that's like next month, 2 months from now. What are your thoughts about My Hero Academia? Are you sad it's going to be gone? And what impact has it made on your life? Those are the questions that are going to be answered by each and every one of us tonight. And we'll start with Scott.
All right. Well, I am a fan of My Hero.
Okay.
It is a bummer that it's leaving. I haven't read it, so I've been waiting to watch it as it comes out. So I had no idea how close it was to being finished. It is kind of a bummer that it is this close. I like its cool take on superheroes and whatnot, so it'd be sad to see that go. What was your last question?
My last question is, how did it impact your life?
Good question, Drake. I'd say big time.
Big time. All
No,
right.
it's just another nice addition. So, yeah, it's just gonna maybe just be a bummer when it leaves. I think that's the extent, probably.
Yeah, it's going to be a real big
That's the
bummer.
extent it'll take me.
Lance, are you familiar with My Hero Academia?
Uh, Tangentially, I'm familiar with it. I haven't watched it myself yet, but what I do appreciate about My Hero Academia is how much it was a gateway for a lot of fans out there. It was kind of one of the first things that when I talked to friends or frankly some people's kids, they were really into it, and that's what brought them to conventions, to comic book shops, things like that.
Oh, that's cool.
And I also feel like based on this fandom that I've already seen come into comic shops, I think it's one that, even though it's wrapping up in August, I think it could be one of those evergreens. I think it could be generational, like a Pokemon or Ninja Turtles. I could see it coming back in a few years, and now another wave of kids getting into it because it's rich. I think that's yes, it might be wrapping up in August, but I don't think it's going to go away. I think it's going to come back and back and back.
Man, to be honest, I hope so. I mean, 430 chapters, almost a decade of appearances in a Shonen Jump, some spectacular characters, and I think really set the bar in terms of how you can make a power unique. For example, my favorite My Hero Academia character was Best Jeanist, and he wore pretty much a full-on Canadian jumpsuit, just all denim jean, and he could control threads, and he could control its like tensile strength and manipulate those things. So just really interesting and creative ways to be able to input cool superpowers that you could never think of. But we'll be sad to see it go. Huh?
Would that be your cosplay? Is that what I expect to see you at the Fan Expo one day?
Man, he's really tall and thin, and right now I am a little bit chunky, and also he has blonde hair. I would need to blonde my hair, which I'm on the verge of. Maybe I'll blonde my hair. I've never done that before. I mean, it's a little late in my life, almost midlife crisis style, but I could possibly do it. What are your thoughts?
I
Yes.
do want to see you in like a jean turtleneck though.
That was the part that I'm excited for.
Yeah, that's all
Yeah,
we
yeah,
really
yeah.
got to see, and we know you.
Yeah, it's like a one because I don't. Oh, yeah, it's a jean jacket turtleneck, but also I think it's pants. It could be a singular jumpsuit. Other than that, there's gonna be a lot of threads because I'm gonna have to make that suit from scratch, and that's gonna be real tough, real tough.
It's true.
But from one jean jacket to another, Andor season two came out with a little bit of news that it will feature more characters from Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I know we all love Star Wars here. Um,
Yeah.
Lance, you
Old
heard
and
about
current,
this?
right?
Yeah, old and current. Mostly not current, especially not right now, but older, just before what we're doing right now. Um, what are your thoughts on? First of all, did you like Andor? Secondly, are you excited to see characters from Rogue One?
Andor is one of the strongest contributions that we've had from Disney Plus.
Ooh.
And Rogue One is one of the strongest movies we've had since the original trilogy. So connect those. Yeah, I'm all on board. Yeah, Andor is terrific. When the first trailer for Andor season 1 came out, I was telling my wife, I'm excited for this as a movie, and it happens to be Star Wars. It just looked like a cool sci-fi story, and it delivered. It's Andor is such an easy recommendation for a great Star Wars story.
Definitely, definitely. And Scott, do you confirm? Do you deny? Do you add a little zesty zest?
No, I agree with that. That was
Okay.
a great way to describe it. I am always down for more Andor. It is a standout for me. Um, yeah, do we know when it's coming? Did you say that?
I have no clue when it's coming. Let me read through the thing. It doesn't say.
It's okay. I'm excited for it either way, though.
Yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't. Comic Con. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, yeah, nothing finite in this IGN article, but
Yeah, 2025 is all I see so far. So we'll
okay,
have to wait a
there you
little
go.
while.
Okay,
But
I'm ready for it.
and I credit Tony Gilroy,
Mm-hmm.
the creator of Rogue One, and to let him continue in that world that he built in Andor. He's unreasonably talented, and he happens to like Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. It worked
It's
out in our
good.
favor for sure.
Somebody
Yeah.
saw Michael Clayton and said he should make a Star Wars movie, and they're right, but that really doesn't make sense. That was an awkward call at some point. Hey, Tony. Hey, good job. Congrats on the Academy Award nominations and the George Clooney stuff. You like Star Wars?
Yeah.
Do it.
Okay, here's a check.
Yeah,
I mean,
amazing.
yeah. It seems as if I think because it's closer to Rogue One in itself is closer to Empire Strikes Back, and we can kind of see that Andor is very much like behind the scenes of how things took place, and it was very not niche in the sense of like what it was, but very specialized in what it was showing and what it was telling. And I think like you said, Lance, it's one of the strongest things we've had, and I think right now it's something that I think Disney can lean on in terms of Star Wars content. Obviously, Acolyte's still getting a lot of heat, and it's not necessarily getting better, and there's a lot of things going on in the background. And granted, that content is exciting to a degree. I think seeing more of what we like and what has worked bring to the forefront might help in the band-aid and the wound that the Acolyte has created for some of us who are Star Wars fans. But moving on from Star Wars to another beloved, I guess, series or IP, Jurassic Park. Scarlett Johansson confirms that her casting in Jurassic World and teases the movie's incredible script. I don't even know what that means because you never know until we actually see it. We've talked a little bit about Jurassic Park before, but what are your thoughts about Jurassic World and it continuing? And what are your thoughts about moving on from Chris Pratt and Dallas Howard into a Scarlett Johansson, a Black Widow? Question mark?
Well, the first Jurassic Park, Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park, is
The best
one
one
of my
yet.
most watched movies of all time.
Duh.
It's one of my favorites, and
It's the best.
yeah, you can analyze it from every angle, and it's beautiful.
The best.
I don't know why. I saw the first Jurassic World movie, and then I've just kind of, my interest has petered out. I'm not sure why. I haven't been as excited about these next Jurassic Park movies.
Yeah, I can tell you why.
Tell me why.
Oh, well, I'll tell you why. Because essentially, once Jurassic World came out, it was a redo, essentially, in a more modern take on the OG Jurassic Park. Because we know Jurassic Park 2 with Malcolm was kind of okay. Michael Crichton did write that book, and it was kind of interesting, but it wasn't as good as Jurassic Park 1 because of all of like the emergence of the technology and the story plot, etc. Jurassic Park 3 was kind of haphazardly put together, in my opinion. Jurassic World was very much Jurassic Park original, but updated. And then Jurassic World 2 was kind of like, what are we doing? And then Jurassic World Dominion 3, where the volcano blows up and, the velociraptors like best friends, and then they brought back all the original cast, like fanfare wise fantastic, but story wise terrible. And so I can only hope they're gonna do better. I mean, this quote says, quote, "The script is so incredible. David Cope wrote it. He returned after like 30 years to write the script. He's so passionate about it, which is so awesome." End quote. Which doesn't mean it's the best script you've ever read in your life. So, Scott, what are your thoughts on the writing? We know the writing has to be real good. We know that Scarlett Johansson isn't really in terrible movies. We do know that David Cope is a good writer. He wrote the original Jurassic Park. What are we gonna see here? What are we expecting? What are we not expecting?
Yeah, well, if I'm ScarJo, I'm gonna want to hype my movie or the movie I'm gonna be in. So
Yeah, you are.
whether it's good or not, I'm gonna be like, it's a good time, check it out. So we won't know until we watch the movie or at least see the trailer and whatnot. It is exciting that it's being written by the original. Um, that's cool. But I like you were saying, Lance. Like I think when World came around, I think when 3 came around, I was like, this feels different. Like it had a totally different tone. And then when World came, I was like, this is it's the next generation's Jurassic Park at this point. But Jurassic Park, I mean, dinosaurs coming to life along with regular people, it's almost like a no-brainer. It's gonna make money. So whether it's good or not, it's still gonna make a good amount of money. I think it all depends on how much money they throw into it, whether they're gonna make their money back or not. But it's kind of like a Transformers franchise at this point. Like they can just,
Ooh.
but if it's good, that's a plus. Like you know what I mean? So I'll wait till the trailers and whatnot. But I got like my nephew is gonna go bananas over it, and when you got like younger nephews, siblings, or kids or whatnot going crazy over it, then that kind of gives you joy to watch it too. So you kind of get to see it through their eyes as well. So I'm sure it's still gonna be a good time. But yeah, good for ScarJo. I think it's a good move. Chris Pratt made a lot of money on it, and I think ScarJo could do a good job with it too.
I believe all three made $1 billion. This movie is set to the release date potentially could be July 2025. Currently, it's filming in Thailand. Suwatikap.
Well,
and in terms of the cast that's been reportedly maybe kind of going, Manuel Garcia Rulfo, Jonathan Bailey, Rupert Friend, and two-time Oscar winner Mahershala Ali might be in the project, potentially. And so we'll kind of see how it goes. I mean, obviously we won't know until we get the first trailer to see kind of what are they doing. Are they going to kind of hinge on Tyrannosaurus Rex and doing the roar and the Goldwyn Mayer situation, or are they going to do Velociraptor things again, et cetera, et cetera? So hopefully it's new and different, and a new take on things. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and I'm hoping it's really good because I know you are a big fan of Jurassic Park.
Yeah. I mean,
I want you to have a good time, Trey.
I would love to have a good time. I mean, I'm still gonna watch it.
Fingers. Yeah,
cross my fingers. Hopefully it's rated R. Scarlett Johansson's in it, so that'd be great if there's maybe a little bit more adult to it in terms of like gore and blood, mainly. But Drake's always open to other R-rated things. Anyway, so the next thing that we have in our news, if you love the Harley Quinn animated series, which I think we all kind of do, we know that there is a Kite Man within that show, and that person is getting a spin-off called Kite Man. Hell yeah.
That's awesome.
For me, first off, 100% Scott, it's awesome.
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to it. I think this kind of, to me, DC does a really great job at animation, and they've been doing a really good job at like staying true to like the comic book idea of the long form movies, and also the DC Justice League style of animated series, and this one in general, which is more towards like a adult audience, but still is very cartoony, much like The Boys is now. I think Kite Man was a pretty hilarious character up front and was very side within that show, and for that individual to have their own kind of show, much like Peacemaker had his own live action, I think this is going to do really good. Obviously, I'm being optimistic, but do you think it's going to do not good? Question mark.
I mean, I think it should do good. Like you said, like they pretty much established their I guess their DC universe in the Harley Quinn realm. Like all of the villains are kind of hysterical, um, or hilarious, I should say. Even like Bane. So like if I feel like if you get a good cast surrounding Kite Man, it should be good. Since Kite Man's kind of like at least portrayed in this, he's kind of like a dummy, but he's simple. He's like he's got like a I guess a kind heart. It seems right. He kind of gets screwed over. He was in a relationship with um Poison Ivy, right?
Yes.
And then she breaks up with him, and he's like, "Oh, he's gonna bum." You kind of feel for Kite Man, even though he's like, I mean,
Correct.
he's a
Yep.
very silly character. But yeah, I think it'll be good. It should be funny, nonetheless.
Yeah. Lance, you're a comic book aficionado. You used to manage a comic book store. What are your thoughts on Kite Man?
Yeah. You know what? I I caught up to Harley a little bit later than I didn't watch it when it was immediately coming out, but I caught up pretty quickly, and it justified why anyone would come in a comic shop and say, "Do you have any Kite Man comics?" I have no idea what you're talking. I mean, I know what character you're talking about, but no one has ever asked for that
Oh
ever.
no.
So
Right.
uh, he's, DC knows where to give free reign for certain things, and I think acknowledging some of the goofiest characters in the Batman universe by way of Harley and giving him like a very well voice cast and giving him a little bit of background is really ambitious. It's fun. So I I think my hope for Kite Man is maybe we just start with like 4 or 6 episodes or something like that and just see how it goes. I don't know that I need like 12 episodes of Kite Man, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Harley was a home run, so maybe I should just trust them and that they know what they're doing.
I mean, okay, so here's my thoughts. What if Kite Man really takes off, right? Kite Man, hell yeah. It gets kind of like a cult following. They put out a comic book that you can unfold into a usable kite.
Oh,
That could be
that
cool.
sounds like a '90s comic. That sounds
Yeah.
like a '90s enhancement they would have done at some point. If Kite Man had any interest or following in 1995, that would exist.
I mean, it would have to be made out of really durable, like a polyurethane or like a plastic situation. It would cost probably a lot. But you could, I mean, once you open it up, it probably loses its value. So I don't know. I don't know how we sell it to the public in terms, or maybe you buy two. You buy one for flying and one for keeping.
Yeah.
That's how you collect things.
Oh, you're such a collector. I need one for reading and flying,
Yeah.
and one for
Oh, yeah.
collectability sake.
That's right.
Duh. Uh, you don't touch things or else it loses value immediately. That's kind of the whole big thing there. So that's it for the news. On
No,
to
you can't enjoy it. Yeah.
I don't want to enjoy it because I just want to keep it in its box and let it build value, and or just know that I've wasted money and I'm not using the thing that I spent money on. So that's kind of my life right now. Anyway, I'm kind of it's the next trailer that we're going to talk about is kind of like my collection habit, Nosferatu. It is quite scary and a rendition of something that's happened before. If you were able to watch the trailer, the first thing that stood out to me is that what is that guy's name? William Dafoe is in it, and anything William Dafoe is in, I can say without a doubt is going to be watchable. So, A, have you watched the original Nosferatu? B, does this one look scarier than the original? First question? Question mark?
Right. Willem Dafoe's zygomatic arch is featured very prominently. Somehow it's getting bigger as he gets deeper as he gets older. His cheekbones keep getting further out. I'm not sure how that happens.
Yeah.
But I have not seen the original Nosferatu for a long time, but it's public domain, so you can find it anywhere, but you must find horrible versions of it anywhere.
That's true.
You can get, it's the reason Walgreens has it for $1 on DVD.
Oh, word.
But
Talk about
it's
deal.
okay. So here's a weird thing about the original Nosferatu, because it's a
Mhm.
silent movie. That they put out a version of it that had music done by Type O Negative. I don't know if you know that rock group, but it was
Unfamiliar.
on like a DVD like that. You're like, what? Type O Negative did a soundtrack? This not really, but they recorded some music that kind of goes with it, and it just repeats on it. So you can skip it. Just watch the original if you'd like. Just a word to the wise. If you
Yeah, that's
see
interesting.
that as a footnote somewhere, you don't need to see
Wow.
that's
Yeah,
good for you.
catch the silent one.
I think this trailer that we have for our new Nosferatu, it looks more like the Bram Stoker's Dracula, like that Francis Ford Coppola Bram Stoker's Dracula. A real like committed to the period piece, committed to the look, very atmospheric. I'm sure a tremendous budget was in costumes. It looks cool. I think it's got a great. Just carry through that trailer into the movie, and it'll be stunning. It'll be great.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I've never seen the original.
Also excited that the name. Oh, sorry to interrupt. Sorry.
No, you're good. You could go for
I
it.
also like that. I like the creator on there, Robert Eggers.
Oh, yeah.
His name comes up prominently in there. He did. I did not see The Lighthouse. That has your Willem Dafoe in it too. But he did
I did see that.
The Witch a few years ago.
Oh, yeah, he did.
That it's spelled
okay,
with like that
nice.
double V, the Witch,
Yeah.
or whatever. No, Witch. That's what I have to say. And that is such an an amazing horror movie that's built completely on suspense and tone. It doesn't have. It's not a tremendous budget. It doesn't have tremendous special effects. It's nothing like that. It just really crafts a spooky air to it. And I think now we give them, as I said, a budget and a big IP like Dracula. I mean, the expectations are going to be big, but set aside your Christmas Day plans. Go see Nosferatu.
Yeah, it's funny. The witch is the reason why every time my wife and I see a goat, we go Black Phillip. There's that creepy little goat in that movie. But I didn't realize the director for this movie did The Lighthouse and Witch. I watched both of those. They were great.
And Northman.
Oh, and the North. Okay,
Mhm.
so I'm probably gonna check this movie out. I don't really know too much about Nosferatu, like the original or this. Just watching the trailer, I thought it looked really cool, really stylistic. I'm not really one to watch things that are like too creepy, like
Yeah.
like the Conjuring and all
Hereditary.
that stuff.
Yeah.
So if it was hard for me to gauge whether it was gonna be too scary or not. Kind of lame to say, but if it's not too scary, I'll go ahead and watch it. But I might wait to see how it is. But it looks cool. I'm down for it.
Yeah, I mean,
What are your thoughts?
vampires in general, I don't think they're ever going to go out of style. I mean, you can kind of have them over the course of, modern steampunk, in a cave, in space, underwater, and it kind of just works. Like blood sucking kind of just works. So this one in general, I think the darkness of it, I think the creepy tones of it, I think Eggers does a really good job at lighting. He also does a really good job at cinematic shots that are focusing on not only the background, but also, or I guess playing with the foreground and the background quite really well. The Witch, I think, is the most different from The Lighthouse, The Northman, and Nosferatu, just stylistically. But I think it's going to be a really beautiful addition, and something that hopefully is going to be refreshing, but not necessarily outdated. I mean, Nosferatu is a super old movie. I mean, it was one of the scariest movies originally back in the day, but that's because technology wasn't very good. And so, with a wonderful director and better technology, we should assume that it's going to be a tad bit better. But yeah, creepy. Who wants to be in a castle with a tall man and is gonna suck your blood? and doesn't have a lot of hair. It's always really creepy. Something that's
That's very true.
also super creepy, penguins. Not necessarily a bunch of them, but a singular one that's in Gotham that's trying to take over. Penguin, the HBO Max series is coming out quite soon. A trailer
Hmm.
came out, and I don't know. First impressions, I'll reserve my thoughts for once one of you have spoken about it.
I don't know as much about Penguin as maybe Lance does, because I feel like Lance has a pretty good comic book background. So
Yeah,
I'm
he
just
does
gonna
look at that
say,
smile.
it
Hmm.
it looks good. I'm down. Colin Farrell. I like Colin Farrell's Penguin. Um, Even though it's very different than the Penguin I grew up watching, whether he's like Danny DeVito's doing them or in the cartoons or whatnot. But I dig this style, and I dig this universe that they set up for the Batman. Um, so yeah, I'm for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited that we get to revisit the Batman's Gotham City. Um, I think Matt Reeves' version of the Batman was great. This is a great idea to continue that, and I think for a series based on, like, say, a crime lord like Penguin, I think that's ripe. I think there's a lot that we can do with that, and I mean, even the I think it was a WB series or maybe it was on Fox, so the Gotham, that was pretty engaged. I enjoyed that quite a bit too, and we had
Me
a
too.
version of Penguin there too, and
Hmm.
he was probably maybe the most interesting character throughout that whole series. And now we have just maybe a different spin on something like that. I mean, Gotham proved that we can tell some very interesting, we'll say, mob stories or crime lord
Mm.
stories, and Penguin's going to be continuing that with Colin Farrell and Clancy Brown in there too. Clancy Brown's always a sign of success.
Yeah.
That's great.
Nice.
It does kind of pay a little bit of homage to like The Sopranos, right? HBO
Mhm.
originally came out with The Sopranos. This is kind of very mob boss mentality type situation. You get a lot of those shots at people looking, people feeling angst, right? And like
Yeah.
gunshots, spraying bullets, etc., etc. I was surprised to see Kristen Milotti in here. I've never seen her in a role like this before. I mean, I think the last thing that I really focused on that she was in was How I Met Your Mother, which is a bit ago. Dating myself a little bit, but obviously she's been in some things. I mean, I think her acting range, from what I saw in the trailer, I'm intrigued because you're getting kind of like this trifecta of individuals trying to vie for power, um, and we're gonna kind of see how it plays out. A part of me, in general, wants to see a little bit more like superhero things. I don't want to see Batman. I don't want to see Robin, but I do want to see like the darkness of it all. And you can tell just by how the set is, and the how Gotham is being portrayed in this situation, that it's very run down and the power is right for the taking, and it's right off of the back of the Batman. Um, but I just want to see some cool stuff. I want to see Penguin's umbrella gun, or something, some little homages to the original cartoony situation. That's maybe not necessarily in line with what we're gonna get, but that's what I want.
Right.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna get that, but
Yeah,
that
we're
would be
probably gonna get
cool.
that.
It'd,
Yeah, it
it'd
would
be
be really
funny if
cool.
someone like brings up the idea and he's like, "Get that out of my face" or something,
Yeah.
and then something like that. But
Umbrella gun, get out of here. What is this,
someone's doing
1932?
sketches on like wants to be an inventor and a weapons designer or something
Yeah.
in the crew. Something that'd be great.
In the crew.
In the
Um,
crew.
Lastly, on our trailers, Paramount Plus just came out with a TMNT Tales. I don't know if you got to watch this trailer. I believe it came out a few weeks ago, but it's picking up some steam.
Oh
I
yeah.
think that we like the art style. It's a little bit different and a little bit of a departure from the TMNT Mutant Mayhem. It's a little bit more traditional in that sense. Scott, were you able to watch this trailer and have
Um,
any feelings about it?
yeah, I was able to just check it out. Um, it is different than the Mutant Mayhem, but there's enough there to remind you of it. Like I feel like it still captures all the I guess all the things you need for you to know where it's coming from, like where it's stemming from. Um, it looks cool. I grew up watching TMNT, like and all these different variations of what. And my brother and I just beat. It's remember that game we picked up, Shredder's Revenge,
Oh
that we
yeah, yeah,
played
yeah.
like a day and then we never played it again.
Yeah, yeah, that's
I
true.
told
It
my
was
brother
always
about that, and
good.
he's like, "I have that game." So then we started playing it and we beat it. It was fun.
Okay, okay.
And it really did. Well, before this, we're talking about the old arcade version of it, and it really did remind me of that.
Yeah.
So I am all about it. Um, yeah, it looks cool. I hope TMNT goes on forever.
Forever. It is one of those things that kind of has, you know, like been around, even though it doesn't really come up really anymore. Just like it sprouts up again, and then all of a sudden TMNT's really there. I mean, Lance, what are your thoughts? TMNT, do you like this? Is it better than Mutant Mayhem? Is it better than the originals where there was a suit and they went to old Japan in a time portal?
Well, I think I'd express this with My Hero Academia a moment ago, but I TMNT in my lifetime has come back in many versions. From like we had the comics in '84, the animated series in about 89, 88, 89, and then it came back in like a Nickelodeon, and we had live action movies, Michael Bay quote unquote live action movies. Nickelodeon's relaunched it a couple more times, so I feel like this is just the next wave, and I think continuing that what we got in the Mutant Mayhem, the Seth Rogen's Mutant Mayhem version. It's not completely that style because I think that frankly would just be cost prohibitive. It's that the animated movie was so rich and kind of a Spider-Verse inspired. This at least uses those same character designs with braces and glasses. I'm not sure what kind of healthcare the Ninja Turtle. Apparently, they have a dental plan and vision plan, which is amazing. Good for them.
I mean, it's probably like Medicaid. It's probably put on by the city, like a municipal situation.
Right.
They are teens, so maybe they're covered until they're 26. So I would assume Splinter has some sort of medical plan. He was a rat that was being tested on, right? So he was in a laboratory, so he probably had healthcare.
I think what I like about Mutant Mayhem and is being carried over in this Tales of the TMNT from what you see in the trailers, they're teenagers, they're kids. So they spoke to my nephews very well. Like they went to go see Mutant Mayhem, and that was, I think, they're kind of a version of Turtles that was for them, and they thought the fart jokes were hilarious, and I don't disagree. But they are written for them. It's made for them, and it's one of their adjectives. They are teenagers, and if that can connect with teenagers, beautiful. That's great. That's what it should be.
No, you're right. Farts are always funny, and they may be smelly and they may be gross, but you can't help but laugh and smile when somebody does it, and they just can't help it. Except for in a bathroom for some reason. When I hear pooping in a bathroom, I just think, wow, that guy's having a rough time.
It's the least funny farts.
Yeah, it's the least funny fart because you know that things are coming out of there that also is gross.
Then you wonder, I wonder what they ate.
Yeah.
That made them get this way.
Yeah. And then you look at the shoes and you're like, oh, do I know this person's face? And then you do, and you just have to live with that. That you know the sounds.
They don't know you
smells.
know, but you know.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know why they just don't make toilet cubicles down to the feet so that we don't see the feet.
When I went to Japan, you get your own little closet.
Yeah.
It's just completely sealed. It's amazing. You feel like so safe in there, just chilling, Yeah. And then the bidets are another level. Like Japan's got it locked down. They gotta bring that over here. America, you get like this much. Kids can walk by and just see you poop, and you're like,
yeah, dude, it's crazy.
Get out of here, dude. What are you doing?
Get out of here.
Stop looking at me, dude.
My God. Okay, so how much money would it take for you to poop? You're taking a poop. Nobody can see anything but your face. But they know you're pooping. How much money would it take for you to do that?
Can they hear everything?
They can hear everything. And your head, you're just a floating head, right? They know that within the box or whatever, you're pooping. They can smell it. They can hear it. But your face is exposed. How much money do you need?
Wait, but where is this going out to? Is it being broadcasted to what?
It's not being brought. Okay, so let's say it's on Let's say it's in the middle of a grocery store, just to make it really gross and disgusting.
Yeah.
Am I? Is this in exchange for groceries, for like gift cards and stuff?
Nope, it's
Yeah.
straight up. It's just money. You just get money.
You get free carrots.
You get free carrots. I guess you
go
could
on the
get
poop
prune
camp.
juice. You get free prune juice, but it's for an allotted amount of money. How much money would you take to poop in the middle of a grocery store with just your face showing?
Oh, you're in the middle of it, just like a porta potty.
Follow-up
You're in the
question.
middle. Okay.
Yeah,
Is this my local grocery store?
it
That's a good
is.
question.
Oh, that's a great question. It's a grocery store within a 100-mile radius. Could be anywhere. Could be a Albertsons. Could be a Safeway. Could be a King Soup's.
It'd have to be one I don't plan on going to ever again.
Could just
Yeah.
have it be a Whole Foods and really give it back to the man. You know,
Can we
Is
wear a
it-
mask?
you cannot wear a mask.
Okay.
Hmm,
Can I wear heavy
Good
makeup?
question.
You cannot wear heavy makeup.
You can't look like Gene Simmons when we do it.
You can't look like Gene Simmons. You can change your hairstyle, and
Okay.
you can choose to wear glasses or not wear glasses. You can have facial hair or not have facial hair. Those are the only things, though.
I think I have to do some math because I have to figure out how much it'll cost me to do curbside at this grocery store for the rest of my life because I can't go back in.
Yeah.
good.
Well, I mean, with the money that you get from it, you could do curbside for the rest of your life, depending on how your grocery situations
Right.
are. Yeah.
It's true.
I would say tell me a minimum amount of money. The minimum amount of money.
Oh, how about that? What if the prize is you don't pay more for curbside pickup forever?
Okay. And you
mean-
get money.
And you get some money for the day.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
some-
For
there's
the
some
day.
I don't know.
I would say okay. So the minimum amount of
I
money.
think
So what? What do you say, Lance?
Contingent on this not being video recorded.
It is.
Oh,
So
it
you
is being
replay
video
it?
recorded.
Well,
for
I mean,
posterity?
you're
It's
in a
gonna go
store.
viral,
People are
dude.
gonna record you taking a poop. They're probably
And
gonna
that
live
means
stream
you're
it.
gonna broadcast it everywhere.
Yeah.
Because then they were like, I've never
Mm.
seen this before. This store does this, and it's gonna be you like.
Yeah, this will
You know?
trend. This is a problem.
You just
Oh
can't
my
be the
God.
first one.
Yeah, you can't be the first one.
That's right. You did. Be the second or third.
Okay, so
Yeah,
let's
to do
say,
this,
just to
not
make it
the- yeah.
easier, there's
Okay.
20 other people, or there's 20 people, including you, that are doing it at random stores in a 100-mile radius. Minimum amount of money.
Oh, 25 grand.
25 grand
25
minimum? Okay. Scott, can you beat 25 grand? Do we have 25
I'll
grand?
definitely consider that.
Okay. Scott, minimum
know. I don't-
25 grand?
I don't know what my
Wahoo's
Minimum
small.
would be.
Just remember.
Wahoo is small.
Yeah, dude.
Dudu
Pepa.
I know, yeah. Just be. I want like a down payment on a house or something worth
So minimum's
I'm
gonna
just like,
be
million in
$600,000. $1 million. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Jeez, what a-
Yeah, it's expensive in Hawaii over there.
Wait, it's so expensive.
Yeah.
And you're gonna
Minimum?
go viral for sure. in Hawaii.
Yeah, you're gonna go
No,
viral for sure.
I don't even know how to quantify that. Like, I mean, because it could be a.
Drake, do you have a
Yeah,
price
do you
tag
have
in
I
mind?
kind of want
What-
to hear your minimum.
Okay, so my minimum for pooping in a box in the middle of a grocery store at a 100-mile radius, one of 20. I would say it's gotta be. Oh man, I would say 100K. I would do that for 100K. 25, I could go for 25, but I have some plans. I think my poop deserves a little bit more
Mhm.
value. 100K.
Okay,
100K is decent.
Well, yeah,
that's
that
reasonable.
sounds pretty
That's
good.
reasonable.
Scott, are you gonna beat 100K? Or are you gonna be between 25 and 100?
It's gotta be more.
More? $2
200K.
billion. 200K.
$2 billion.
Oh my gosh,
I poop
Scott.
like this all the time. Shave my head. I look like Dr. Evil.
Oh, then you're definitely going viral. Then now,
Yeah,
you're,
I gotta
now
lean
you're
into it.
famous.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
why, like, part of me
Dr.
is
Evil
like,
poop.
yeah, part of me is like, it sounds funny, so like you gotta kind of lean into the laws of it, like. Yeah, if you're either gonna be afraid of it going viral or just like lean in and be like, "Yup, part of the joke," and you get money.
yeah, and
So,
you're getting money, dude.
Because then when people hear you got money, that might work in your favor. He's like, yeah, I did too. You know,
Yeah,
you end
and
up
then
being
it's
the cool guy
gonna
that pooped.
start a trend.
Yeah. So, yep.
They're gonna
Totally knew
probably
it.
do it in that aisle that has all like the summer stuff and the rotating candies because it's the widest aisle in the King Supers. So,
Hmm.
Probably.
I mean, at least it wasn't in a Walmart. Imagine if it was in a Walmart. That's lots of space and there's lots of traffic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right,
But
so
you know,
I'm
if they're only offering this to like 20 people and they take the first cheapest people, like we're not making the cut.
yeah,
Okay,
we're not
that.
gonna make the cut, but
Yeah.
you're a part of the
I'm
20,
there.
so you can
It's
Oh, I'll
dictate.
be there.
Yeah,
So like, do I get a sandwich? And I got to poop. So
just for the sandwich.
So-
I mean,
yeah, like, you could get more. It's like, nah, I've seen a sandwich.
well, you saw it here first on the Joystick Show. If there's ever a time where a human being is forced to poop in the middle of a grocery store in a 100-mile radius, one of 20, now you know kind of how you would average out the cost for it. And you heard it here first. And so, since then, why don't we move
Black
on
Mirror
to
scenario. Yeah.
it's a bowel movement for the ages. And we're on to reviews.
Reviews.
We watched some stuff. Um, why don't we just talk about If first? What If? No, not What If. The movie If.
It's just
That
called If.
Yeah, it's just called If. It was directed and written by John Krasinski.
Mhm.
Chef's kiss. Anything he does is very, very good. I'd like to see him work with Michael Pena because I would watch that all day.
Give him
Um,
Jurassic Park.
And in Jurassic Park, Jesus Christ. The budget for this was $110 million. It made $181.3 million in the box office, according to Wikipedia, which is a reputable source. The cast is phantasmalastic. What did I think about it? What is it about? It's about a girl who has the best parents in the world, what it seems like, and the mom gets cancer. Spoiler alert, and she moves on. And John Krasinski has to go through a procedure, and the main character B, or Kaylee Fleming, is dealing with it. And she goes upstairs in her brownstone apartment complex with, like, I don't know, New York's crazy. And she finds Ryan Reynolds, whose name is Cal, and he seemingly looks like he's in charge of placing discarded imaginary friends. And B starts to get into it, and she really gets really involved. She gets hired on essentially to do the thing, and she's meeting all these new imaginary friends, and she's trying to figure out how can she reconnect them to their original owners who have gotten older and have forgotten about them. It's a very beautiful coming of age story in terms of how do you deal with tragedy, how do you deal with your own emotions, and what individuals and coping methods are utilized within that to be able to help bridge those types of things. My initial thoughts, I thought it was really good. I thought the character was really good. The cast is ridiculous. I mean, a who's who: Steve Carell, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Louis Gossett Jr., Awkwafina, Emily Blunt, George Clooney, Bradley Cooper, Matt Damon, Bill Hader, Richard Jenkins, Keegan-Michael Key, John Krasinski, Blake Lively, Alison Seeger, Sebastian Maniscalco, Christopher Maloney, Matthew Reese, Sam Rockwell, Maya Rudolph, Amy Schumer, Jon Stewart, and of course Brad Pitt as Keith, one of my favorite characters in the whole show.
It's so hilarious. Of course, he's Keith.
So hilarious. Keith is so hilarious.
Keith
And
never spoke, huh?
Keith never spoke. He was just
How is
tripped
he-
over multiple times.
How is he? That's so funny.
And
Just gave him the
it's supposedly it's a reference to his cameo as the Vanisher in Deadpool 2 by Ryan Reynolds. Supposedly.
That's so funny though.
But what are your thoughts? Did you Scott and Lance, did you get to watch that movie?
I did see it.
Scott did? Tell me
Yeah.
your thoughts.
It was really good. It was better than I thought it was gonna be. It's really heartwarming. There's definitely tear jerking moments in this movie.
Yeah,
Christine
jerk it.
cried. Not me, dude. No, there was there's moments where I'm like holding back, like don't cry, man, don't cry. It's beautiful, don't cry. He did. Man, John Krasinski did such a good job in this
Such a
movie.
good
Like
job,
the
dude.
score, I have to say, the score really like makes a movie.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
when this
yeah.
movie starts, you're like, this could easily be a scary movie if the score was different. Like it's already kind of creepy. Like I'd have to say the ballerina imaginary friend.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
the one that looks like a
Uh,
50s cartoon almost like.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
She looks kind of creepy if there's not like really lighthearted music behind.
yeah. She
Like
looks like
like
she
if
could
I just saw
murder.
her in the streets, I would probably like
Hmm.
start crying. Like it's just yeah, it's just kind of with the lighting and everything because it's realistic.
Yeah,
But yeah, overall though, it's really good. The cast is crazy good. It's just a really good feel good movie. Beautifully done. Steve Carell, of course, is hilarious. As Blue.
yeah,
There's moments too. The way they do it is like you know what's gonna happen, and when it happens, it's still funny and charming.
yeah.
Um,
Beautiful.
and I was able to call it when I was watching the movie. I knew it was gonna happen at the end and everything, but still, still fun, still fun movie. I don't think it's very obvious, but it's worth a watch for
Well,
sure.
Scott, you mentioned the music, and a fun fact: Michael
Mhm.
Giacchino did the music for this, and he has also done scores related to Mission Impossible, Jurassic World, the Marvel Universe, Star Trek reboots, Pixar Studios, and he also ventured into directing, beginning with the Marvel Studios Disney Plus special, Werewolf by Night. Lance,
Oh,
get into
Yes.
Michael. Tell us about his background and how he's
grown.
real good.
Yeah, that was yeah. Um, he's an amazing composer. I mean, you mentioned just a handful in there, but even more specifically, things like Doctor Strange and The Incredibles,
Hmm.
and like I said, the more recent Mission Impossible movies. I think he's also worked on. Did he do? He has some Star Wars connection. I don't remember if it's Rogue One or not, but yeah, he's tremendous. You know, I did have a question for those who saw If. I was going to ask, are you familiar with an animated series called Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends?
I sure am.
Duh. Duh.
Yep. Yep.
If sounded based on the trailer, I kind of that's what came to mind immediately was
Mm.
I loved Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Could this be that same movie, or does it kind of take a different directions? Does it treat it differently in your opinion?
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Right in the beginning, the way it's kind of being displayed, and even the main character is blue, right? And like in Foster's Home, the main character's blue. I was telling my wife, like, why did they just make that movie? She was like, maybe they couldn't get the rights or something. Maybe they didn't
Mm.
want to do it, so they're like, okay, well, we can. It is different enough, because it's not the way they display in the movie is not everyone can see the imaginary friends. Um, and towards the end of the movie it is very different than it's not like just a house you can go up to like in the cartoon where everyone knows it's they are full of magic
Okay.
friends. It's
Yeah.
kind of like if you can see them and whatnot, you're kind of welcomed into that world, um and all that. And then the main character kind of helps place them and whatnot. And um yeah, it was I mean there was clearly enough strong similarities, but then they ended up kind of doing their own thing with it, which I really enjoyed. I think that could
Yeah.
have been part of the hesitancy for me in the beginning because I was like, this is just like that thing I grew up loving. But yeah, I think it
Yeah,
was different enough, at least for
Mm.
me. What do you think, Trey?
that's good.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was just adjacent enough, just parallel enough for it to be reminiscent, but not stepping on toes. Had they done Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, I think because they did Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, that to me was like that's kind of in line with what Foster's Home was to a degree. Obviously, Foster's Home is a little bit more kiddish.
Mm-hmm.
Could they have done that? To me, they would have had to have really great child acting, which good luck. And then the
Yeah.
CG would have had to been real good, which especially how Foster's Home was, unless they do it kind of like a Spider-Man far from or no, Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse type situation,
Mm-hmm.
maybe. At the same point in time, would the consumer be open to that considering Foster's Home was very much our generation? They have not done anything like that since, except for If. So maybe at the same point in time, If as a standalone really worked. obviously I'm a series guy, but if it was a series, I think it could have done just as good as something like Sweet Tooth because of the amount of emotion and provocation of those types of things that it was doing. It did a lot of heavy lifting, and the acting was really good. And I think it could have sustained, an 8 to 10 episode type situation. Really built out the characters, really made you edge of your seat, cry into a tissue or your significant other's shoulder,
Right.
that kind of a situation.
And to what you're saying about the child actors, Kaylee Fleming did a really good job in this movie.
Yeah,
She
she
was
did, dude.
the kid. Did you think so? I thought she did really good.
I did think she was really good. I think, me and like young people and they do kind of silly things. It was definitely believable and it was never over the top, right? When she was
Yeah.
like, I don't want to have to go through this again, right? She's a young person, she's 12, but she's like, I'm old enough now. And she never really outstated anything. Her dialogue was never too verbose where it was unbelievable or it was too kiddish or it took me out of the character. Um, it was very controlled, contemporary, and I think it really did it justice to having shown all of the characters and let kind of like the bigger actors kind of take on the heavy load. And she was a very
Mhm.
good kind of complementary and yet leading character for it. I mean, her filmography is kind of crazy as well too for somebody who's only 17 years old, born 1 year after Scott and I graduated high school.
Oh
So
wow. But
yeah,
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 I
yeah,
think she did a great job. Wait, she's 17?
yeah, dude,
Oh, well, she's. I
crazy.
mean, even more so, she's
I
brutal.
know.
I thought she was like 12 years old. So
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah. I mean, she could probably. Yeah, I mean, you could make the argument she could have maybe been the who is the main non-imaginary person in Foster's home. She could have maybe done that role, but I think this was a lot better. It was a lot more Broadway-y, a lot more theater-y. I liked it a lot better. Um, but from one imagination to another, Lance, you watched on Disney Plus Jim Henson's Idea Man. We're all familiar with what Jim Henson has done for us as human beings and for the world of puppetry and other. What were your thoughts on the Idea Man known as Jim Henson?
This documentary on Jim Henson is probably near perfect. I think what I love about it is that they were able to uh, interview a lot of the individuals who worked alongside Jim Henson. So particularly you want Frank Oz's perspective on that. Frank Oz, his sons, some of the other Muppet performers who worked alongside him. It idea Jim Henson Idea Man is directed by Ron Howard. I think one of the things that just comes through is he's an artist and he was just a very gentle soul. Like he really um, just such a nice guy and really wanted people around him to succeed when he wanted to succeed by whatever means that was. So that's the reason that I kind of get the vibe that as an artist, he could have ended up as he could have been an animator. He could have been a filmmaker. He could have been. He happened to be a puppeteer. He happened to be on TV, but that's because TV was a medium that he gravitated towards. Early in the presentation of Idea Man, Jim Henson got his first job by answering on one ad in the paper for a puppeteer to work at the local television station.
Wow.
I've never seen that job posting, but it was made for Jim Henson.
Yeah,
So,
it was. I guess.
it's and local puppeteer. It sounds amazing. And he was just always experimental, always looking to push whatever artistic medium could. And in fact, I did not know that even like before Sesame Street, he was nominated for an Academy Award. They made a short. He and Frank Oz did a short film called Timepiece. That's just very innovative in its editing. It's kind of one of those that what's cool is if you do watch the documentary, you can pull it up on YouTube. It's like 7 minutes or so. It's just real snappy in its editing and presentation and its sound design. And after seeing that, you kind of get like, oh, this was one of the reasons he did Sesame Street, so that he could do puppets, but then also do these little short films and do interesting presentations like this. It was a format for experimental video, and it does go into like Dark Crystal and Labyrinth and just all. I mean, they get a backstage pass for all the projects that he was ever responsible for. When because they're visual medium, there are so many behind the scenes photos and videos and interviews. And there's an interview that Orson Welles did with Jim Henson and Frank Oz that is looks like a lot of fun. I need to find that interview because I cut to it a few times and I just laugh out loud at Orson Welles' response and his gravitas in talking about Jim Henson and puppeteering. But I tell you what, it's a lot of fun. It's also not overly long either. Like this is one of those that like I feel like could have been presented in 3 parts, each one 2 hours. Nope,
Ooh.
it's just like it's a tight. I think it's 7:45, under 2 hours. But that's one of the reasons that I enjoy it too. That they didn't feel the need to stretch it like I think a lot of other streaming services might have if they had Ron Howard, Jim Henson, and all this footage.
Scott and I didn't get to watch it. I know, Scott, you really want to watch it. I also want to watch it. I mean, Jim Henson was kind of a big. Puppets are just fun. I mean, it's kind of in lieu with like stop action, those little fuzzy type characters that they do, and they slowly. But obviously, the Muppets, fantastic. Sesame Street, fantastic. The Labyrinth, obviously. The Witches, obviously. Dark Crystal, duh. I think really, like you talked about, Lance, way before his time. I kind of wish there was still that going on. I know we saw a small homage to it in Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And also, wouldn't it have been fantastic if Jim Henson and George Lucas worked together on a Muppet Star Wars? That would have been so hilarious and awesome.
I agree.
Scott, based off of your Jim Henson things that you've watched before in your life, what are you most looking forward to into seeing the behind the scenes in the idea man known as Jim Henson?
I like seeing the like bringing the puppets to life. Like it was, it's like the whole team he built too. Everyone was on board with like his vision and whatnot. So like, just I kind of want to see like a far shot of them like all together doing a full scene of puppets and like what that took, um, how close they were together. I love all that behind the scenes stuff. Like, were there any things they were like writing last minute? Were they playing off of each other's ideas? Were there improvisations during filming? That sort of stuff. Um, yeah, I want to definitely check all that out. And like, of course, like I'm sure they give you a glimpse into his mind and how he like, yeah, how did some of these ideas come to him? Is it like, did all his great ideas come to him while showering, or was he like just working with puppets by himself and then like, oh, we should do this, or like I don't know. From a far away view, did he look like a crazy person coming up with crazy like good ideas, or?
Well, Scott, you'll be entertained. There are plenty of behind the scenes with uh, where you get to see, like you said, the wide shot of the two puppeteers working, one with the head, one with the hand, and the other working the other hand, and then we have another puppet. So there are 4 people accounting for one head and or 2 heads and 4 hands. It's
cool.
Yeah, that synergy was amazing. Yeah, so, question to you, Drake and Scott: what Muppet do you identify with most for each of you? Sesame Street, Muppet Show, Fraggle Rock, Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, etc.
Wow, what a great question.
Growing up, I always liked. I always forget the other guy's name. I love Gonzo and his friend, the little rat guy. They kind of help. Yeah, they kind of helped like break the fourth wall in the movies you were watching, and like they were like almost like what you were thinking sometimes or whatnot. I always liked them. I think they brought a lot of comedy. Not to say that the Muppets and stuff weren't funny, but they brought a lot of like comedy you weren't really even expecting.
Are you a fan of Muppet Christmas Carol?
I love that. Yeah. Muppet Christmas Carol, and then for whatever reason we grew up watching the Muppets Treasure Island a lot too. I really like that.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, watch that too. Yeah,
that was pretty fun. But yeah, Christmas Carol, we watched. I think we watch that every Christmas time now because my wife, she watched it every Christmas with her folks, so that's just something we end up doing now as well. So yeah, it's great. I love it.
favorite caricature. First one that comes to mind is just Beaker, just
Oh yeah,
because
Mhm.
that one.
it was just
Yeah.
it stood out just so much, and then obviously Swedish Chef,
Oh yeah.
just because how like ridiculous the word like the wording of like
Yeah.
and it's like such a over
It's so
exaggeration of what
Pretty
Swedish people
solid.
sound like, but they sound exactly like that. They don't. But in terms of like the movies like The Labyrinth and the other one we just talked about, what is the other one, Lance? What is that other one called? Dark Crystal.
Dark Crystal.
Yes. They recently did a reboot of Dark Crystal on a Netflix, and it's pretty cool. They updated it a little bit more, and I liked it a little bit. Obviously Jim Henson didn't do it, but it was very nice to kind of see that homage. But all of those the Skeksis are just fantastic. I think horrible looking creatures, and you can appreciate the attention to detail there. Well, we've got to our final two reviews, which things that around the American universe we've been watching. The Boys and House of Dragon episode 2. Unfortunately, Lance and I were not able to dig our eyes deep into those the annals, but Scott was. So he's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting. So Lance and I are going to have a lot of questions. But Scott, go ahead and take it away. Do both of them at the same time, back to back.
That's what I was expecting.
All right,
Perfect.
make it tough.
Okay, I'm super bad with names, so some of them might be like, remember that one guy? No, but
Yep.
I have the cast here. I'm gonna try and
Steven.
go through them as quick as possible as I talk about the episodes. Big things happening in both these episodes. We can go with House of Dragons first.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
That.
Mhm,
Okay,
mhm.
there's gonna be spoilers.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, let's see. Cliff notes. Big things that happen in this. Let's see. The news of the child being killed got
Yeah.
back to Daenerys, and Daenerys. Oh no, not Daenerys. Oh my god, I'm show, dude.
And cut.
We will start again. 3, 2, 1. Rhaenyra. That's her name, right? Rhaenyra.
Yeah, something this.
What with the hot seat? Okay, so she finds out that Damon sent out the hit on Eye Patch Bro, and they didn't kill the right kid, right? So now she's pissed. She's like, they think I purposely did this. It's not what I wanted to do. At the same time, the now king Aegon is going ballistic, and he wants to declare war. He's like just not keeping it together. His hand Otto is trying to tell him to like, we need to like be smart about this, use this death to our advantage. He wants to, what they end up doing is displaying to the kingdom that the child died. They like end up sewing his head back on its body. They show you the stitches, kind of crazy. And the queen and the mother, he's like, I want you guys to ride through the town and like let them see you sad, and this is gonna win their affection, and they're gonna love you and accept you as the king and royalty and all that stuff, because there's still like that tension between who's like rightfully sitting at the throne. So that like ends up working in their favor, but then Aegon speaks to Sir Kristen Cole, who's a big dummy in this show or this episode. He feels guilty because he was sleeping with the queen while this happened, so it probably could have been avoided if he was on watch. So he ends up taking it out on one of the twins. There's Arik and Eric, I believe, and telling the, I think Arik is the one that's still with Aegon. Them. He's telling him like, kind of blaming him, and is like, a way to resolve this would be, why don't you sneak in the Dragonstone, pretend to be your brother, and just kill Rhaenyra.
Wow.
And he's like, what? Like, by myself? And he's like, yeah, do that. I believe
Easy.
in you. You
Easy.
got this. And you're thinking like, who is Kristen Cole to like give orders like this? Like, what? And then he ends up, I guess he tells the king like, hey, this seems a good idea. And Aegon's like, perfect. And then Otto finds out and he's like, you guys are fucking idiots. Like, what are you doing? This is already like Eric has left. And then Aegon was like, Otto, I don't really like you as the hand anymore. You're my dad's hand and you're not mine. So give me the pin. And he's like, you're an idiot. And he's like, oh, you know what? Give it to Sir Kristen. He's my hand now. He's like, what? He's like, yeah. So he throws the pin at Kristen. So I guess Kristen calls the hand now. Otto is gonna Otto might leave and like come back maybe later as the hand, but that's where they're at right now. Damon left because Rhaenyra and Damon weren't agreeing with his decision. So Damon's like, well, peace, I'm out. Left. And they don't know where Damon is. Eric arrives on was it Dragonstone, and he is like just blending in, I guess. He comes in, everyone thinks he's his brother. And he gets right up until he's gonna like he enters the room where Rhaenyra's is, and then his other brother shows up and they have a brother battle. Oh my gosh. It's a good battle. Sad because they're brothers and they love each other. And they do a good job because like yeah, they obviously love each other. They're trying to stay true to who they think is like the rightful heir. But above all, while they're battling and they know they have to fight to the death right now, they still love each other. So Eric, who's come in to kill the Rhaenyra, is fighting Eric, ends up killing his brother Eric, who is under Rhaenyra. So after killing him, he can go and kill Rhaenyra. But he's so sad he had to kill his brother. And he's like, I didn't think I'd have to like fight him. I thought I'd just come in here, kill you, get out. So he's like, I'm so sorry. And he just falls on his own sword and kills himself.
Wow.
So they both end up dying. It was really sad.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of sad to lose them. I really like those characters. So that's what's happening. And yeah, that was the big thing. So now Rhaenyra knows that there was a hitman sent for her, and it's just really becoming more and more like a real Game of Thrones type of situation here, which is great. What are your thoughts on everything I just said? I'm trying to remember everything.
How much do you rely on the previously on, like the recaps that lead you in? Because what you described sounds like a whole miniseries, and it was an episode. So, so when you get those like recaps, are you just like, oh yeah, and that happened, especially if they're going back more than one episode?
Yeah. Just like I watched it yesterday, and I was trying to remember what happened, and I kind of like was blazing through one of those things, and I was trying to remember the beat by beat. But there's just so much happening right now. It's hard to. I mean, it's like the best way to get it all in is to watch the episode, obviously. But yeah, this was a really, really big content heavy episode. So, yeah.
Do you wish that? I mean, I know you're watching it episode for episode right now, but do you think you would enjoy it more or the same if you were to wait for all of them to come out and then watch it in a week or something like that? Just watch them back to back to back.
Great question.
It's interesting. When the show first aired, the season 1, I watched them week by week, and then to get ready for this season, I rewatched them with my wife just back to back, and I think I enjoyed that more. We kind of have to watch them week by week because we're talking about, and I don't want to get spoiled, but I think towards the end of this, I might just rewatch them all and watch the finale like day of or whatnot. I think that's probably the best way to let everything sink in. Everything's fresh. Sometimes just little details here and there that you kind of forget that happened, and maybe that's what they want because they know it's not fresh in your head. But I think I like, especially because everything they're throwing at you, I like it to all be there. So maybe in one go is the best way to do it.
If given that option, sure.
If given that option, yeah.
No, I think I agree with that sentiment as well too. Like watching, even when Game of Thrones was like in its pinnacle, and everybody's like, "Oh man, I can't wait to watch it on Sunday." Like there's been very few things that have taken place where you're waiting for the day for that episode to come out. And Game of Thrones was the most recent one, I think, in my opinion. And even for me, it was just the battle for power. is just not the most attractive thing for me. I understand that's kind of what's taking place in a lot of like dramatic things like Shogun. That was what it was about, but different in the situation where this is kind of a little bit more phantasmic. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's still really good. It still had a lot of drama, but for me, watching it day to day or week to week wasn't as powerful as being able to watch it back to back to back to back, even when watching Game of Thrones. Because I think when I got into Game of Thrones, I was already 4 seasons behind, and catching up to it was to me more interesting than like waiting for the next episode, because the cliffhanger kind of was like, oh, okay, and then it was kind of hard for me to get into like, oh, so this power dynamic, like, wow, they just want power, like, for what, for who? But when you have the back to back, you can really like invest, and I think that's probably what's going to happen for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think for rich storytelling like that, where you have not just A, B, and C stories. I mean, there's like A through J. There's, like you said, there are characters that like, well, I don't know what happened to him. Well, he's coming back sometime, but it might be not be for 4 episodes. You're like, that's a month. I gotta wait a month to find out. But that's the binging opportunity you have there, where like you saw that this morning. I know it's midnight now, but you saw that seed planted earlier. So
Yeah.
it's interesting that I think they're trying to be both event programming where you have to tune in. It's like a sporting event. You have to, you almost have to watch it live, otherwise you're going to miss something, or it's going to get spoiled or whatever. But there's also that bulk viewing that it lends to as well. So it's I don't know, it's a brave new world.
Yeah. Is there one that you prefer? Do you prefer a bulk viewing or per?
that that's where you'll be. As Drake was saying, like my venture into Game of Thrones, I almost about the same. I think I was 4 or 5 seasons back, and then uh, caught up in on my own schedule. A few episodes a week, and then we were caught up by like the last episodes. So I think we watched
Okay.
like the last 3 or 4 week to week, because we finally got up to that. But um, so there's also, and as like you said, you have to wait a week between them, but it also lets you kind of marinate on it, lets things kind of settle. Or as you said, I miss those two characters. Miss them for a week. That's okay.
That's
It's
very
okay to
true.
kind of let that sink in,
Yeah.
versus okay, next. What's our next story? What's our next
Right.
story? So
Yeah.
That's very true.
Well, Scott, was House of Dragon as good as the latest episode of The Boys?
The boys. You know, hard to say. The boys was very the boys this week. If that makes any
Mm.
sense. Um, it was Homelander heavy. So maybe in a way, yeah, like there's just more tragic death. Um, one of the big
Fact.
things in things that are happening simultaneously, like Homelander ends up going back to the facility where he was a young boy being tested on and whatnot. So
Mhm.
he shows up there. It's like 6 levels below the basement, or ground level, I should say. And he shows up, and there's all these just scientists there, and he brings a cake, and he's just alone with them, and they're all like kind of freaked out. And that whole thing was just very uneasy. He's like, "Oh, get some plates. Have some cake. This is great." Like, "Oh man, it's been so long since I've been here." And just like little by little, he's like picking out people that did him wrong. It gets unveiled as he's like, the as he's talking to them, that he's steering towards something sinister. Um, like the first guy, he's he was like, "Oh man, you used to play that," or he threw a piece of paper in a garbage bin or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, you taught me that." He's like, "Oh really?" He's like, "Yeah, you want to play a game?" And he's like, "You want to like first to three or whatever?" And he's like, "If you make all three in, you get to go home early and see your family." He's like, "Oh okay." And then they start playing, and then after like the second shot's made, he's like, there was like this oven to the right of them, and he's like, "I remember seeing you make that shot when I was like right before you turned up the temperature to try and see if my skin would set on fire." And he's like, "And it didn't, but it hurt really bad." And I remember people like looking outside and writing notes and stuff, and you were there and you made the shot, and you were like, yeah, you had your fist pump. And he's like, oh, okay. And it's like really uneasy. And he's like, I'm gonna make my shot. Why don't you watch from inside the oven? And he's like, no, you don't need to do this, Homelander. He's like, no, it's fine. And they're like, yeah, of course, sends that guy in there, like hits that button, and like you see this guy burn. It's like it's pretty gruesome. And then the next guy, similar thing. He like makes it's very The Boys. He like makes this guy like jerk off in front of all of them because he once saw Homelander jerking off, and that he called him squirt because he saw him jerking off, and he's like, oh, okay, now you're gonna have to jerk off in front of us, and if you can't do it, then I'll blast a hole through you.
Wow.
And like he does do that. It's like a very just like uneasy Homelander stuff. So while that's happening, there's the Starlight's meeting up with the who was that guy trying to set up that bill to with the supers and whatnot. Was that like their governor or something?
Something, yeah.
Something like that. She's
Some
trying
guy.
to meet up with him, and she's like, I can use my Starlight's power to like help that because I've built like a Starlight army at this point. You know, like they'll do everything for me, and it'll be great. You have more votes. So while that's going on, Vought, what's her name? Something sister. The really intelligent one. The new seven.
Oh,
member.
I don't remember. Sorry.
Her the smartest woman, the smartest person, Sage.
Oh, Sister
Sister
Sage. Yeah, there
Sage.
you go.
The smartest person in the world. Gives Firecracker a platform for 6 hours. She's gonna be on this like televised event where she can talk whatever she wants, and it's gonna be mainly like bringing the truth out of bringing the truth about with Starlight and like her real plans or her real history and all that stuff. So it's set up right outside of where Starlight's set up, and it's just for 6 hours of like her bringing up the past. There's a part where like her and the Deep are singing a duet, which is pretty hilarious. They bring back that stretchy guy, that priest guy.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
like
yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Fantastic. He's there. He gets into a pretty big battle with Frenchie because Frenchie's in Firecracker's room, and he's like, "Oh, I'm a big fan." And then they just like get into this battle. Pretty cool. Butcher shows up, uses like liquid nitrogen, freezes his hand, knocks it off, and that guy ends up dying. So in their fight, Butcher's about to die. The stretchy guy's got his like head like tightened up around his arm, and Butcher blacks out. And when he wakes up, that stretchy guy's just exploded everywhere.
Wow.
And they're like, whoa. And he's like, I don't know what happened. So he's worried about what happens when he blacks out. Frenchie kind of gets messed up. It gets unveiled that, you know how like Frenchie was sleeping with that one guy.
Yeah.
They're like in a relationship. And it was brought up that that guy, the last thing he remembers of that night, because he was there when his family got killed, was the person who killed his family had these burn marks on his legs. So in this episode, Frenchie tells him, like, hey, it was me, and that guy almost kills Frenchie, and he's like, if I ever see you again, I'm gonna kill you. Ends up letting him live. Bounces. And then with Firecracker, she ends up like revealing all this stuff. She ends up revealing the final thing is she reveals that Starlight and Huey were gonna have a baby, and she had decided to abort it.
Dang.
And like her medical records were up on screen, and she's like, "Son of a bitch!" She snaps, goes over there, and just beats the living crap out of Firecracker, and like wasn't even thinking about the TV and stuff like filming and whatnot. So the world got to see that, and then you see Sister Sage. After all that happened, she's like, "Boom! Exactly what I wanted. Step one complete." So you see her scheming and everything like coming to be, but in the last episode, did they show? Because I'm trying to remember. Oh no, I think it was this episode. Huey's dad is dying, right? So they were gonna pull the plug, and his thought is if I can get my dad some V, he'll live.
Yeah.
So he calls A-Train. A-Train ends up getting him V. And A-Train's like, are we good after this? Like, you're not gonna hold your girlfriend's death over my head now. Like, we're good. And he does. He's like, yeah, we're good. Butcher sees that and is like, I can't believe you. Like, what the heck? And he's like, no, it's for my dad. And he's like, don't do it. like then he tells him like I've tried to take V and it didn't work. I'm still dying. And that gives you a glimpse into like, oh, maybe that's why when he blacks out, something crazy happens. Like, so he probably got powers, but he's still dying. I guess he still has that tumor.
Mm.
But he ends up taking the Huey takes the V vial to his dad, and he's like thinking about giving it to him, and he like keeps it in his jacket pocket, and he's like, maybe I'm not gonna. Leaves his jacket, and then his mom is real. It's weird. Like I don't know if she's like maybe someone that can shapeshift, not really his mom. That's what I'm thinking.
Mm.
Because somehow she knows he has V on him, and she ends up. You don't see her do it, but when Huey comes back, you see her kind of smiling or whatever, being all weird, and then V ends up like going through his tubes, and then the dad wakes up. So his dad's back.
Oh.
So it's gonna be interesting to see what's gonna happen in that regard. There's some weird slithering thing going on with Butcher. Like you see it. I forget if in episode 3 you see it, but in 4 you do. Like you see it going along his head here and like up his back and everything. So I don't know if that has to do with the V as well. So real interesting. And then so yeah, that was that with Huey and the boys. Going back to Homelander, he ends up killing everyone but one lady, who I guess could always just speak to him like very candidly. But he like leaves her alive, locked in this room with all the dead bodies. And I don't know if anyone else knows that they're down there, so she might just die of starvation down there. But that was kind of a dark ending in that regard. So, but it looked like Homelander was leaving like with closure in his own sick way.
Yeah.
Which is, the Anthony Starr does such a good job.
Real good job.
As Homelander. He like, I can't think of anyone doing that role right now. Like he's crushing it. But yeah, I guess that's the episode in a nutshell. I don't know what kind of questions you guys got.
And I have to see your eyebrows perking up. I know you got some questions for Scott's.
You were talking about the casting of it. You know, I think that the actors are going to be ingrained with these characters. I mean, not just like for comic conventions and stuff moving forward, but do you think that they'll be able to get away from these, let's say, heavy characters that they're playing now, these richly created, deep/dark superheroes? Will you be able to see them in other things outside of the boys and accept them, or will it kind of forever be like, she's gonna snap, she's trouble? I know she's, you know, it's a rom-com, but this is gonna be bad.
Right. That's actually a really good question. There are certain characters for sure, like Butcher and Anthony Starr. I think going forward, even if I watch something that they've done in the past, I'm gonna think of them as that. Like I was just watching Lord of the Rings, Two Towers last night, and when Carl Urban shows up, I'm like Butcher. Like I just can't help but like the whole time I'm just thinking of him as Butcher, like young Butcher. Anthony Starr going forward, he might end up, at least for a bit, he might need to take a break because it might turn into like this Joffrey effect, you know, like where people are just gonna see him as Homelander outside of the role. And it might already be happening, but yeah, those two for sure. And it's funny, like when you say like when you see them in another thing, there was what was it, She-Hulk, when we were watching She-Hulk. One of the characters in that who was like a really positive, good friend in the show, ended up he was a villain for a bit in Arrow, and I forgot that, but I remember him being a bad guy. So when I saw him in She-Hulk, I'm like, this guy's not a good dude. Like something about him, like he's gonna turn in this series, and he just ended up still being a good dude. I'm like, why is? I looked up the cast, like I'm like, oh yeah, he was in Arrow. He was a really bad dude, and he kind of played a good dude at first, and you know, so yeah, sometimes that stuff sticks with you. But the other guys, maybe not so, but especially those two, I think they might have a hard time shaking the role.
Yeah, they might need to have like a full beard and prosthetics or something like that. They might be needing Colin Farrell penguin makeup to be the next role and be like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, but yeah, maybe actually. Yeah, for sure.
I know, I agree with both of you on the idea that The Boys is so, like, to a lack of a better term, like iconic. It's definitely superhero, but very like adjacent / parallel, because it's not like the superheroes we do see. I mean, obviously, Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man, but he's had so much range before that he can kind of fit into other things. Whereas Senor Stark this is kind of, for us, it's one of his major roles that we've seen him in, and I really can't imagine him in any other role. So much so that I believe in a lot of interviews with him, when he talks about fan interactions, they assume that he is like that, like Homelander in real life. And if that's taking place now, it's definitely the Edward Cullen effect, where you are the Vampire Man and you can only play roles like the Batman. So I think he has the range. I think he has the talent to do so. But I think you're right, Scott. I think he's going to have to take a break because Homelander is just such an iconic character now. He's just synonymous with Senor Stark there.
Yeah, I agree.
But on that note, we've covered all the things in terms of our reviews with If, Jim Henson, House of Dragon, and The Boys. We got through our trailers of Nosferatu Penguin and TMNT, and all of the news of My Hero Academia, Andor, Scarlett Johansson, and a Kite Man. We've got to see our wonderful friend Lance join us today and talk shop as our comic aficionado and also chalk drawing art superstar. Men, do we have any final words for the Joystick Show before we jump off and enjoy our own joysticks?
I think there's so many great things coming out right now. I mean, whatever your fandom is, if you're looking for the next Jurassic Park, there's something on the horizon for you. If you like The Witch and you want to see another great horror movie, I think Nosferatu is going to be it come Christmas. But not to mention House of Dragon and The Boys, and then on the complete flip side, the charming world of Jim Henson. And If, are you kidding me? So pick your fandom, support it. It's there for you. Be choosy, be selective, because you're going to continue to find great stuff.
Well said.
Ooh,
Scott,
I like that.
final words before we conclude?
Yeah, I was gonna say, listeners, in the comments, tell us, do you prefer, week by week episodes, or do you prefer binging? And are there shows that are better in one format or the other? It's interesting. It's an interesting topic. So,
And on that note, always watch this show and or listen to it because, it's our joystick. We love sharing with you guys. Make sure to stay tuned and stick around. Don't forget to like and subscribe on all platforms. And obviously watch us on the YouTubes just so you can see our wonderful faces. But with that being said, thanks for sticking it with us.
The Joystick Show. The Joystick Show.